Good day, and welcome to Lesson 21 in our study in the book of Ephesians. Now, Paul has been telling us through the last chapter or so how we as Christians should act and behave, especially towards one another. And the basis of this has been that we should walk in unity, we should walk in love, we should walk in light, and we should walk in wisdom. And he has used these principles to show us how we should interact with each other. We should interact in the family, how the wife and the husband should interact, being obedient and being loving and being helpful and being supportive to each other. How children should act in accordance with their parents, how they should be obedient to parents, and how parents should be loving, supportive, and nurturing to the children. There should be an interpersonal relationship of love and sincerity between both of them. And now he's getting into another aspect of one's life, and this is the place of employment. When Paul wrote this, there were no real such thing as employers and employees. This was often a situation because in the Roman Empire it was almost considered illegal for people of the aristocracy to do what we call menial work or everyday work. So there were slaves to do this work, and people employed slaves, kept slaves for this purpose. Now Paul wasn't condoning the use of slaves, but slaves in those days was a bit different than what we consider slaves in a more present connotation. And especially bond servants, bond slaves, because these were often people who had paid off whatever debt they owed to their master and stayed on as slaves or servants voluntarily. So in the Roman Empire, when you could not do menial tasks for people of wealth or importance, they employed slaves. And slaves did most of the work that we now consider employees to be doing. So there are probably 60 million or more slaves when Paul wrote this. And this was the life in those days. So just as there are employers which are not very nice to their employees, there are employees which are not very nice to their employers. The same was true back then. There were masters which were cruel to their slaves, and there were masters which were very loving and supportive to their slaves as well. So this is what Paul is saying as Christians. In those days, he was supporting the people who were Christian slaves to be working with their masters, not against them. And he's saying the same thing to us today. When he says this, bondservants, be obedient to those who are your masters in the flesh, according to the flesh. Who are your masters on earth? Who are your employers? Who are your overseers? Who are your supervisors? Be obedient to them. Be obedient to those in the flesh with it says fear and trembling here, but this really is referring to being of honor and respect. So being obedient to your overseers, to your bosses, with respect and honor, as in sincerity of heart. Do it, being sincere in doing it. Don't do it half-heartedly. Don't do it half lackadaisically. Be sincere. Being sincere as if it were Christ himself who were employing you and who were telling you to do this. And there are a number of ways in which this is shown in the Bible. In Colossians chapter 3, it says, verse 22, Colossians 3, verse 22, it says, to them God, warning every man and teaching every man in all wisdom, that we may present every man perfect in Christ Jesus. Okay? In Timothy, it refers to this in chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. Let as many bondservants as are under the yoke count their own masters worthy of all honor, so that the name of God and his doctrine may not be blasphemed. And those who have believing masters, let them not despise them because they are brethren, but rather serve them because those who are benefited are believers and beloved. Teach and exhort these things. In other words, if the overseer or your boss is also a Christian, don't take advantage of him. Be honorable to him and be respectful to him and teach him and teach others to do the same. So it's important to be, your action and your attitude and your aim is to serve the person who employs you with honor, respect, and with diligence, to give them the best you can do for the time that you are employed with them, to give an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. So this is the idea of this small section, bondservants. Bondservants, give your masters what is required. Give them honor, give them work, give them the proper day's work for a proper day's pay. So this is really what he is saying here in this small chapter. You should give yourself give yourself the ability and the duty of doing what is right for your overseer, for your boss, the same way that a slave in the day of Paul would have to give his master honor and respect and do what is right then. So be obedient to those who are your masters, according to the flesh. Those who are overseeing you according to the flesh, as if it were Christ himself. Because what you are doing is displaying the love of God towards all these people. You are as to Christ, not with eye service, not just by pretending you're there, or by doing half-luster work, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from their heart, with goodwill doing service as to the Lord and not to men. In other words, working as if you're working for the Lord himself and not for men. This is the idea that when you're a Christian and you're working in a situation, you should be working as if the Lord himself is overseeing you and doing for the master, doing for your boss, doing for your supervisor in the same way as if you would do it for Christ himself. So, bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with goodwill, doing service. Do it with joyness. Do it with joyfulness. Do it the best you can, in the best way you can. There's a story in David Jeremiah's study on this chapter about a man named Bill Hansen, who worked for a number of companies, including ExxonMobil and another company called Hutchison Plumbing and Heating and Cooling. He worked them for many, many years. In fact, he retired only when he was 97 years of age. And on his 100th birthday, he said he hated being retired. His only thing he wanted for his birthday was to go back to work. So Hutchison gave him a contract for one day so he could go back to work on his 100th birthday. And when he got there, they gave him a party, but he immediately left and went to work. This was obviously a type of employment where he gave honor and respect to his employer, and the employer gave honor and respect to their employee. There was a mutual affair of affection between both, and this showed up in the way that Bill Hansen worked throughout his life and enjoyed his work and wanted to go back to work even on his 100th birthday. Another example is presently where we see the new movies that are being put out by David Attenborough, the new movie Ocean, which he is putting out right now on his 99th year, because he has such a passion for what he's did and what he continues to do. This is the type of relationship which would be ideal for everyone, but not everyone, of course, can get this to this degree. But we can all show honor and respect to those who are above us, At the same time, those above us should show honor and respect to us. So it's mutual. This is how Paul is stating this. Give work, not with eye service, but with wholeheartedness to your employer, as if you were giving it to Christ himself. And it says, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive the same from the Lord, whether he is a slave or free. It's the same. It's Ecclesiastes chapter 9 puts it this way in verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with your might, do it with your whole heart. For there is no work or device or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going. Once you're over, once this life is over, it's all over as far as anything on this earth is concerned. So do it with, whatever you do it with all your might. And this is really what Paul is saying here. And he's also saying to you masters, do the same things to them. Do the same to them that you require them or request them to do to you. Giving up threatening, don't make idle threats, don't be bombastic, don't be loud, don't be doing things that would intimidate your employees, but do it in a loving, honorable manner. Giving up threatening, knowing that your own master is in heaven, because over all of us is God, and there is no partiality with him. He does not look upon people as employers and employees. He looks upon us all as what we see in their heart. So there's no partiality, there's no master, there's no slave, there's no employee, there's no employer. They're all equal in front of God. We are all equal in front of God. So therefore treat each other with the love and the wisdom that people deserve, that we deserve, that they deserve, and there will be many more people and many more relationships in which the employee will wish to work for many, many more years than they do now. It's the way that we should be working, and the way we need to do if we are to show Christian love to each other. So the main purpose of this small section is to show the relationship in a Christian way, which should be between an employer and an employee, the same way it was in Paul's day between the master and the slave. Do it with honor and respect as if you're doing it for Christ himself, both the employee and the employer. That's the end of this little section. So we'll get on next week into a different section in this same chapter. Anyway, thanks for watching for this. I hope to see you again next week. Bye for now.